for videos. So far, I don't have a long running list. I actually just have a list with about 3 random ideas that I didn't really want to make videos on at the time, but they're ideas that I want to come back to when the timing is right. But what I usually do so far is to see what's spontaneously arising. What is the inspiration of the day? What am I feeling in any given moment? Because I feel like to talk about something that's actually something that I'm experiencing, something that I'm thinking about, it feels more authentic is the wrong word, but it seems like it has more warmth, more humanness behind it than an idea that I put on a list, because that seems to drain it of life. It seems a little cold. It's like I can access that space that I was in when I had that idea, but there's something about the freshness of what I'm thinking about right now, whether that be, I don't know, something more philosophical, something more related to, planning and organizing or telling stories or whatever it is. I like to practice being in the moments of inspiration. So all that to say, I've been thinking about pain and death, which sounds really morbid. I don't mean it in a morbid way, but I was thinking I have a few different ideas of things that I want to talk about this week. And I thought that the best starting point would be just a really simple concept and something. I was triggered to think about this by watching an interview that Oprah did with Joe Biden 2 weeks ago. And regardless of your political leanings, it's a really good interview. It's a sense to get a feel for him as a human being, because Oprah goes deep, as she always does. They talk about personal things. And one thing that I was reflecting on is that pain can have a virtue, and that virtue is empathy. And that's the title of this video, which is sort of an obvious thing to say. But it's something that was coming through to me in the video that I was watching, like the way he was talking about his loss and things like that. And the one thing that you can say is that his experiences with loss has created empathy in him. And I was reflecting on that in my own life, how prior to experiencing any major loss, my perspective on the world, the universe, people, politics, anything, it was black and white. It was this or that. There was no middle ground. And that's also partly a function, I think, of being young. I think the older you get, the more experience you accumulate, the more you realize that it's not quite so simple. There are wonderful people who have polar opposite opinions from you, and just because someone believes the thing that you don't believe doesn't make them a bad person and all of that. But what I found was a really transformative experience for me in terms of just allowing people to be who they are without judgment, without the inner, without any of that, was experiencing loss, experiencing real loss. And this could be in the form of death. It could be the loss of any, it doesn't have to be death. I mean, maybe, losing a significant relationship or anything like that. But going through a really difficult experience, and just for context, and this is something that we'll talk about one day. It doesn't cause me pain to talk about, but it does make people uncomfortable. So I try to be cognizant of that. When I was quite young, 22, I believe, I had a baby who died. And that experience grounded me as a human. It pulled me to earth, where I feel like I was just up in the clouds. I had this black and white thinking, and going through something that awful not only confronts you with death in a literal way, but it takes away can take away the judgments that you have about other people, because you realize that everyone goes through pain, and in some weird way, it's this pain that unites us, it makes us human. But there's a choice to be made in a situation like that. You have a choice. When you go through a painful experience, are you the person who becomes cynical, who becomes jaded, who thinks the world is a terrible place and bad things always happen? It's hard not to feel that way. Or you are courageous and you pry your heart open no matter how much it wants to close, and you try to get something. You try to be better from the experience, because you really, when something terrible happens, you really just, maybe this is overly simplistic, but I feel like you have two choices. You have the choice to become cynical, or you have the choice to become better. And becoming better and finding value in suffering and pain is extremely difficult to do when you're the one doing it. But despite the amount of courage it takes, if you can force, because when you go through something like that, you do, I don't want to speak for everyone, maybe this is just my own experience and from other people that I've talked to, but there is a tendency to just shut down. I think it was at least a good couple years after that experience of myself where I felt like I was sort of out of my body, like I was living my life and doing the things, but there was a part of me that was just gone. I didn't know where it was. And the reason I remember this is because I wrote about it. I did a lot of writing in that time, and I've looked back on it. I can kind of see what I was going through. And there was a lot of things that I wrote where I felt detached. I felt like I wasn't really, like I was sort of watching my life as opposed to living it. And this dissociation I think is really common, but at some point you have to get back, even if you're fundamentally altered forever. It's like when someone dies or when you lose something, there is a death inside of you as well. The part of you who, the before and the after, the before you is dead. It's gone. There was some fundamental part of who I was as a person that also died. Maybe a more innocent part, or like a part of me that hadn't experienced real significant pain. That I had to undergo a total character transformation, and the character I was before was dead. So I had to accept that, get back into my body, pry my heart open, take off the shell. And this all happened slowly and with time, one layer at a time. And to be honest, this is probably something that is ongoing forever, as painful experiences don't just happen once, usually. You know, it's a continual experience. But the main point of what I wanted to talk to you about today was that the biggest gain to be had from a terrible experience, I feel, is the experience of being more empathetic for other human beings. And someone who can, this is why I really enjoyed watching that interview with Joe Biden, just because I really like understanding the human behind I don't know, all the pomp and all the media and everything like that. It doesn't matter if it's a president or whoever. I like having a sense of who someone is as a person. And someone who's gone through deep loss and has come out above it, not as like a shrunken version of themselves, but as a bigger version of themselves, that takes remarkable courage, and that is that's a beautiful thing. Someone who's able to empathize with another human being is a beautiful thing, and it's maybe one of the only bright spots to come out of going through terrible pain. Going through that experience and becoming a more empathetic person was probably that's how I feel, is the best thing that's come from it. I feel a lot less inclined to make judgments on people, or even to not love people. Like, I just feel like people are fundamentally good and lovable, and they experience pain. If I think back to who I was before and who I became afterwards, it's almost like before undergoing, and I'm gonna oversimplify, of course, but who I was before, I had a tendency to caricaturize people. So I had like a cartoon idea of who people were. It was simplistic traits: good, evil. It was good guys and bad guys. It wasn't grayscale. It was like I was unable to grasp the nuance of other people, and because of that, I projected a lot of my own stuff, and I still do this. I just hope that it's to a less degree than I used to, but I projected all of my own stuff. So to really oversimplify, if I'm a liberal and you're a conservative, you know, my younger self would have projected all kinds of stuff onto you about who you were as a person, what that meant about you as a person. It's like I was dressing you up in the clothes of my own design in my imagination. And the passage of time and the experience of pain allowed more of that detail. So it was less like I was looking at a cartoon version of someone, and more like there was more shading, more detail. It seemed like my perception became a little bit more true to life. The parts that I wanted to see and the parts that I didn't want to see, I started to be able to see it a little bit more accurately. And I wonder if pain is a gateway to explore those nuances in yourself. And without pain as a catalyst, it seems difficult to understand that there are those nuances in other people, because you're not exploring those nuances within yourself. It's like unless you go there in your own heart, you can't necessarily recognize it in other people's hearts as well. So the more nuances and it comes down to self-understanding. It's like the more self-aware you are, the more you've had to process things, the more you've had to go inside and confront things that usually just aren't very pleasant to confront, like all of the things that pain can bring up. You have to just look it in the face, and that's really tough. But that allows a level of self-awareness that would be difficult, I think, to achieve without pain. I don't think it's impossible. It just seems like pain is an easy catalyst for that kind of inner growth and transformation. And the more of the details that you can see inside of yourself, the more details other people have to you. So it's almost like if you relate to people in a way that's black and white, or extreme, or without nuance, maybe that's just a reflection of your own inner state, that you haven't explored those nuances inside of yourself. So these are the things that I'm thinking about. I mean, it's a really simple statement that pain it can deliver the gift of empathy, and empathy is really an external manifestation of self-awareness. Perhaps that's a part of it anyway. These are ideas I'm exploring, and I'll continue to explore them at least for the next couple days, unless tomorrow I'm in a totally different mode and I change my mind, which is also likely to happen. But I like the idea of being able to have discussion about death and pain and those things without it being fearful and grim, because something that I want to talk about later is the idea that death can be an ally in life as opposed to an enemy. And I used to perceive death as an enemy, and maybe sometimes I still do. But the more I start to relate to death as an ally who helps me just live better, the more my relationship with reality transforms. But that's a story for another day. But I think we can have conversations about this that aren't doom and gloom, that lead to more self-awareness as opposed to just like perpetuating pain or something. So that's not my intention here. I'm not like angling for sympathy or anything like that. I mean, I feel like most people have gone through significant loss at some point in their lives, unless you're really young, and then, I mean, it's coming for you. It's coming for you. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Anyways, everything will be beautiful and wonderful all of the time. I will catch you guys on tomorrow's video.